Okay, so now we have a third method to solve a quadratic equation. It's called solve by completing the square. And you can use it for, I'm going to say, any quadratic equation. Sometimes it's a really easy method to use, and sometimes it's the best method. Now, these next two problems, you're not going to think that, okay? You're going to say, I want a different method. And that's okay, but we need to go through them so you can understand the process a little bit, okay? All right, so here's the process for completing the square. First of all, if you have a constant, get it on the other side. So that would be adding 5 to both sides. The next thing is you've got to complete the square. So you're going to take the negative 3, you're going to divide it by 2, and you're going to square it. Now, you know that that's a fraction. Okay, so I'm going to get 9/4. So that's what I'm going to add to both sides, 9/4. Now, if you're thinking, well, I could make it a decimal, I don't think that's going to be any better. In fact, I think the fraction's easier to work with. Okay, so you have on the left x minus, because it's minus, and then you have to take the square root of that, which is 3/2. Oops, squared. Okay, equals. Now, what are you going to do over here? Well, you've got to get those combined somehow. They're 5/1, right? So multiply by 4. So you're going to have like 20/4 plus 9/4. Okay, so let me write that again. X minus 3/2 squared equals 29/4. Okay, so the fractions are a little bit of work. That is true. But that's how you just solve this problem, by completing the square. Okay, now I'm going to take the square root of both sides, because I can, if I get to. Don't forget the plus or minus. Okay, then that gives me x minus 3/2 equals plus or minus the square root of 29/2. Because I can take the square root of 4, so that's convenient. Okay, so then I just need to get the 3/2 on the other side. X equals 3/2 plus or minus the square root of 29/2. Now, this answer, I have two answers. They're real numbers, okay? Like I can put it in my calculator and get a decimal approximation. I would not leave it the way I have it here. I would write it, if I want to write two answers, I would write 3 plus the square root of 29/2 and 3 minus the square root of 29/2. Usually I do the minus one first. Sorry about that. Okay, but this is just a real number. Okay. Okay, they're both real numbers. Okay, and they're the answers. All right, so kind of different, right? I didn't talk about the square root of 29. 29 is prime, so it's not going to simplify. So, and I had this common denominator thing going here, so that was very nice, and that usually happens in a problem similar to that. Okay, this next one is a little tricky also. Okay, so take the constant, put it on the other side. Okay, now I cannot have that 9 there. I talked about this in another video, how this needs to be a leading coefficient of 1. So what I have to do is I have to divide everything by 9. Both sides. Now, you could have divided by 9 before you moved the 2. That doesn't really matter. But now I have x squared plus 1/3 x equals 2/9. That's what I have. Okay. So, I reduced the fraction 3/9. That's how I got the 1/3. Okay, so now I have to find the magic number, right? So I'm going to take a 1/3. I have to divide that by 2 and square it. Well, when we divide by 2, it's the same as taking half of it. Like if you divide a pizza in 2, you're taking half of the pizza, right? Okay, so you can think about it being like 1/3 divided by 2, and then you multiply by the reciprocal, you know, that type of thing. Okay, Anyway, I get 1 over 6 squared, which is going to be 1 over 36. That's my magic number. So I'm going to add that to both sides. Plus 1 over 36 plus 1 over 36. Whew, okay, so this is a little tricky with all the fractions, but that's okay. Fractions are our friends. X plus, now remember, take the square root of that. So 1 over 6 squared. Now I've got to get a common denominator, right? I'll have to multiply by 4 here. So that gives me 8 over 36 plus 1 over 36. Okay, keep going. Keep going. So 9 over 36. Okay, so now I can take the square root of both sides. And I get x, oops, get rid of that. I get x plus 1 over 6 equals, okay, I know the square root of 9 is 3. And I know the square root of 36 is 6. I could have reduced it first, I guess. Anyway, which is better, to reduce it now or later? Might be better to do it later. So let's keep the denominators the same. Move the 1/6 over. So I get negative 1/6 plus or minus 3 over 6. Now here's the thing. You have to keep simplifying if you can. So I get negative 1 over 6 minus 3 over 6. And then I get negative 1 over 6 plus 3 over 6. Okay, so the first answer, I get negative 4 over 6. The second one, I'm going to get 2 over 6. I get negative 2/3 when I reduce it. And I get 1/3 for the other answer. So those are my two answers. Now, you're going to say, wow, that was a lot of work. I never want to do a problem like that. Okay, two things. First of all, these came out to be rational. That means that polynomial was factorable. So I'm going to go back and redo this problem and make this video a little longer and show you a way to do it that way. The other thing is we have one more method that we're going to teach you. And for both of these problems in this video, I probably would have used the other method. Except this one's factorable. So let's go back and find that polynomial. Where was it? 9x squared plus 3x minus 2. Okay. 9x squared plus 3x minus 2 equals 0. So you probably don't have enough room on your paper, but this is, if I would have thought about it, they said to solve by completing the square, so I just did it that way. But I want to multiply to be negative 18 and add to be 3. Those numbers are 6 and negative 3. So it gives you a chance to see how to do it by grouping again. And I don't know that I've done an example like this, very many of them anyway. Greatest common factor here is 3x. Greatest common factor back here is minus 1. And the parentheses are the same. Okay, so now I'm going to factor into 3x plus 2 times 3x minus 1 equals 0. So either 3x plus 2 equals 0, I'll solve that, or 3x minus 1 equals 0. So subtract 2 from both sides, divide by 3, and I get the negative 2/3. And then over here, add 1, divide by 3, and I get the 1/3. So I would probably rather factor for that problem and get the answers that way. Let me make sure those are our answers. Same thing we had up here, right? Okay, but they said to do it by completing the square, so I showed you the completing square process. And it was a little long. Okay, but don't be scared. We have another method, and some of you may know about the quadratic formula, but we're going to show you that in the next video.